It should work, because there's a shallow right here, but I don't know why it's not dropping.
It's a really bad harbor. There's a lot of really shallow areas, and then there's a lot of areas that are really deep.
Yeah, I can't do it either.
Sam, can you give it a shot?
Sam, fix it! You're so bright! White like the sun.
Yeah, we're trying to figure this out. Can I manually do it? No.
I'm parking long ways along the docks here where I am. Try.
Yeah, tried there, it didn't let us dock. What's going on? I feel like we should be able to drop anchor. Got it! Found it!
We are from?
What? Oh, hello.
Oh, good evening.
Nice to meet you again. I was on the first trip at the museum.
Oh, yes, I remember.
And I told my crewmates, and Thor here so wanted to go as well. Are you running any new trips through the museum today?
Oh, yes. There was another ship pulling in. Are they part of your crew?
No.
Let's check and see if they want to take the tour, and we just do one big group.
Yes, that
okay.
sounds very cool.
If
Shall we go and greet them?
Yeah, that's fine if you want to.
Yeah.
Oh, no, nice to meet you. I am Boggert. That should be memorable.
It very much is.
You could introduce yourself, Callisto.
I was gonna let other people do it first, but I'm Callisto. Hi, nice to meet you.
Hello, nice to meet you as well.
Birdie, hi!
Hi, Birdie.
Hi, I'm Edgar.
Hey, I'm Thor.
Hello, Thor. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to see you again. Long time. I was on the first trip and I brought a crewmate. He wanted to see the museum.
My goodness, you were on our first tour ever. Welcome
Yes.
back again. I'm glad you decided to return.
Yes, it was a very fun trip. You will have a life experience in there.
There's a lot to see. Are you here to tour the museum today?
I mean,
Hope
sure,
so.
why not?
All right. Sure, right this way, if you like. We'll get out of the rain and into the dry. We'll enter through the mouth.
Oh, it's Callisto, the mouse.
Yeah.
mouth.
It's this way, people.
Good. We sold someone a clockwork and now they call
Shit,
it
it is
the
a mouth.
what? They named it Boggert.
Oh.
It's not raining anymore, Olaf. Yes, it's really good for us.
It's like a shimmer.
Right this way. Enter through the mouth here.
Oh.
Have a lot of signage here.
Callisto.
I want to know what's on the other door. Have you heard the warning? Okay.
We got the warnings here. Have you heard the warnings?
No, I have not.
Heard about the bird though.
No.
Bird.
Bird? What
Yeah,
bird?
the bird.
The word.
The bird's the word.
Oh, my goodness. I've heard that before. The word. The word of what? The bird?
May I ask, ma'am, who the fellow is you're with, who appears to be dressed in your uniform?
Yeah. Oh, this is Boggert. This is my brother. We're twins. We're fraternal twins. Boggert and Boggert.
Tell
Hello,
us.
Bargain.
Good evening.
Pleasure.
And we met Edgar as well. I'm not sure. Where's Edgar?
I'm not sure. I didn't see him go in the museum.
Yeah, he's around.
Seems to have disappeared.
If you're ready, we'll begin. Leave your preconceived notions of the normal world at this very threshold and enter the world of the mysterious, the unusual, and the odd at BoggOdd Oddities Museum by entering the museum. You agree? Management not responsible for any and all incidents herein. No children allowed unless they enjoy horrors and nightmares. All incidents herein also include, but are not limited to, any acts of pushing or falling or stumbling
Into a well.
into any sort of watery area or graves right this way.
Oh, yes. Please step lively into the next chamber.
The tour begins here, just on your right as you enter the museum.
I will be closing the door, and if anyone needs to exit, please see me and I will escort you out.
You need to exit, just scream.
I wouldn't go so close to that.
Ugh. At a blazing hot tropical freeport, there stood a quiet specialty cheese shop at the end of an alley. You're probably questioning, is it appropriate to locate a cheese shop in the melting heat? The answer? No. But not because of the heat, however. It was because of the feral cats. The cats had taken to begging at the cheese shop. As patrons were leaving, they would kindly drop a crumb or two, leaving the cats to wait for the next patron. Eventually, the roof support beams groaned and popped under the weight of waiting cats. The shop owner attempted to shoo them away at first, but then realized the cats would not touch the crumbs of the most pungent cheeses. A patron remarked, "It is so hot today, the stone walls are almost sizzling." As the patron rounded the corner, the shop owner sprang into action, gathering the most pungent of cheeses, began to press them into the blazing hot stone wall, where they melted on, sticking them to the stonework. It really worked. To the cats, the stench of the cheese was so intense that they fled to the far side of the island. The shop owner rested well that evening, until suddenly the roof supports began to creak and groan. Running out into the darkness to chase the cats off the bowing roof, the shop owner caught a glimpse of them in the moonlight. The cats first turned their eyes and then their beaks toward the shop owner. It's then the shop owner realized the roof was covered not in cats, but in hungry vultures.
So if anyone wants to smell what the cheese tastes or smells like, they can sniff the wall.
What is this part of the wall from that shop?
Oh yeah, these are actual pungent cheeses. Some of the pungentness has worn over time, but we don't have any cats in here, so I think it's still working somewhat.
Go ahead,
Sam is our fan
Callisto.
of pumpkin.
Smell it. No, go ahead.
No.
No, go ahead. Smell it.
Hey,
Do you want me to put it in the room? I can put
no. Okay.
Oh, all right. We'll go on to the next exhibit. great northern factory disaster took place on a particularly cold, dark, rainy evening. The main source of heat in the frozen north was a giant fireplace located beneath the smokestack here beside me. The factory backed up to a large rock mountain, and the entrance to a great coal mine was built off of the factory down into the depths of the mountain. The top of the mountain was known as a habitat for an assortment of animals. The employees of the factory found a particularly large snake roasting on the coals late one afternoon and proceeded to prepare it for the dinner pot. It wasn't unusual, after all, for someone to bring whatever they had to share, but they couldn't determine who brought the snake. They made a feast of the snake anyways, and went back to work. As the evening grew colder and darker, they placed more coal into the fire. What no one realized is the snake deliciously roasting on the coals had chased a rather plump sheep from the mountaintop. The snake and the sheep both fell over the edge and landed on top of the smokestack. The snake plunged through the hole down into the coals, but the sheep was wedged high above the factory. The toxic smoke had already weakened most of the workers to the point they could no longer get out by the time the panic began. All but 3 workers were killed in this tragedy. The death toll was said to be near 458 lives, and it would remain the largest number of people killed by a single sheep for at least 2 more decades.
Wait. More people were killed by a different sheep.
Yeah, 2 decades later. We don't have a lot of details on that, however, we're still looking for that. Trying to figure out who was that sheep.
I didn't know sheep were so deadly.
It might have been Carl.
Goodness, you have to be careful out there. Alright, we'll move on to this next display here. Here before you is a certified giraffe examination chair. It has been placed here as a public service by the Giraffe Handlers Association. When a giraffe needs to be examined for multiple reasons, it is much easier to inspect the giraffe closer to their height. The doctor will climb up to the chair above, and the giraffe will be brought closer for inspection purposes. What type of inspection is probably what you would ask. One purpose is to inspect whether the giraffe have the giraffe-like teeth, or whether they have the less common human-like teeth, of course. But the far more common reason, however, is to see if the ears have been laid with spider eggs again, as giraffe ears are known to be the perfect habitat for spider eggs. Laying their eggs in the giraffe's warm ear hair, they lie forgotten until the time comes for the hatching. If you have giraffes tame wild near your home, be sure that they do not shake their heads frequently, as this is the first sign that the spider egg lay has occurred. If your giraffes have ears infested with spider eggs, the time will come that they will hatch, and the giraffe's head shaking will deposit tiny hatchlings all around and throughout your home.
I didn't. Oh no, I wish I didn't know that.
Do you have giraffes near your home?
Rarely.
Oh, all right. Well, that's good. And they're not shaking their heads, though, right?
Not that I've noticed.
Oh, all right. I think you're in the clear. As long as they don't shake their heads frequently, then you can be pretty assured that they don't have the eggs already laid.
Mm-hmm. And you should see the spiders. They see you a mile away and they come running.
Yeah, just imagine them pouring out of the giraffe ears, running down the long neck, sliding down, twirling around, and then chasing you back into your homes.
I don't like giraffes anymore.
Not good. It's not a good thing to have around. It's the warm ears. They're the perfect environment. All the little hairs. All right.
Olaf, I think we need to begin to check all the giraffes in the island.
Yes, be able to check your giraffes. Wild or tame. They're not picky, the spiders. They'll take any type of giraffe if they're... In a far-off kingdom, a rotten king reigned supreme. He was known to frequently decide he had been slighted and place people in prison to be punished or worse. The king unexpectedly ordered a particularly complicated feast from his chef Arthur in the middle of the night. The chef and the kitchen staff worked frantically, as tired as they were, to create a culinary masterpiece. The feast was a triumph, and the king later sent word to see if he may speak with the chef. Word arrived very early in the morning. The king would be to the kitchens within the hour, and the kitchen staff readied themselves for his visit. The king arrived with his guards and quietly toured the kitchens as he thoroughly inspected many things. Nothing was said. The king looked at his guards as he approached the exit and simply nodded. The king's guards proceeded to destroy the kitchens. The pots and pans, the kitchen tools were all beaten down. The guards turned to the chef and said, "The king would like you to know he is displeased with last night's feast. You forgot to serve sea salt instead of regular salt with his meal." The chef was aghast. He knew he had served the sea salt. He had prepared it himself. He only said "I" before he was cut off, and told he was removed from the king's staff and would be placed in prison to await punishment. The king felt assured mistakes would no longer be made in his kitchen, and as a test a few weeks later, he had a brand new feast prepared for the opening of the knight's tournament, and of which a victorious knight stood remaining. The king was so unhappy that this particular knight had won, and not his favorite, that he rushed the knight, dagger in hand. The knight flicked away the dagger and gave the king what the king had intended for the knight. The king now removed from life and power, the knight made their way to the throne and was seated. The shocked crowd dropped the facade of reverence for the old king and warmly cheered a new, powerful leader. The guards, also shocked, but no longer hiding their contempt for the rotten king, said, "All hail the new king," to which the entrant removed the helmet and said, "Queen." "All hail the new queen," said the guards. "What would you have us do, your majesty?" they asked. "Firstly, bring me Arthur, the chef from the prisons." Arthur approached the new queen, and he quietly said, "Daughter, what has happened? And are those my pots and pans you're wearing?" "It's time to explain it all," she said. "They sent them to me at the blacksmith shop for repair. They did not know I was your daughter." She smiled pleasantly at her father, and they waved toward the crowd, over the tournament field and the cold, dead body of the former king. She turned to her father and said, "You always said your pots and pans would bring us good fortune, father. You just didn't know how right you were."
I really like that. It's a good story.
And it didn't make me squirmish, want to vomit, so good.
All right, well, that helps. Yes, we have a little of everything here. There's some stories that aren't too bad.
Before we enter into the next room, please do not panic. Everything is under control, and the exhibit is not totally on fire. In case of emergency, we would exit you in out through the emergency exit.
You're fine. It's only fire that looks like fire. That's all right. Don't be concerned.
Yeah, just don't shake your head away from.
Everyone made their way? All right, all right. On a roasting hot desert island, it rarely rained. House fires were happening frequently. To help combat the fires, the residents used what they had to craft 2 fire carts. These carts, each pulled by the best rhinosaur the island could breed, were filled with water and pulled from location to location. Raspberry the monkey, found wandering an island used as a turtle habitat, was a pet of the head of the fire cart haulers. Out on one of their first patrols, they discovered something unusual. Raspberry had previously been trained to pull a cart. They decided that given his insistence that he be handed the reins, Raspberry would be trained to drive the rhinosaur of cart number 2. This worked more than well. Raspberry was already a complete natural at cart handling, needing no instructions whatsoever. They even crafted a small seat just for him. This allowed the others to focus more on the fires. Months passed, the carts racing fire to fire, Raspberry excitedly guiding the cart all the way. One afternoon, after a particularly difficult morning of fighting a long series of fires, the bell rang again. It was time to ready the carts, and Raspberry could not be located. The head of the fire cart haulers went to Raspberry's room and found the monkey asleep in bed. Knowing the poor creature must be exhausted after the morning that they had another member of the fire cart haulers pull the reins instead. They left without poor tired Raspberry and headed off to the fire. Along the way, they split an unreported house fire and slowed cart number 2 so they could put a little water on it before catching back up to cart number 1. While spraying the house with water, the front door burst open, and a soaking wet Raspberry, extinguished torch in hand, emerged. Not believing that Raspberry could be both asleep and at the scene of the fire, they checked his bed. Neatly shaped and arranged was a pair of trousers, made to look exactly like a sleeping Raspberry the monkey. Raspberry was wise at a great many things, cart hauling and deception being among his greatest talents. He was returned to the offices of the Turtle Sanctuary, where he was found, so that he could retire from his quite busy life. Don't look at me like that. From his quite busy life. He was returned to the offices there. The fire stopped overnight, and the fire cart haulers were quiet until one afternoon a flare was fired over the port, and a representative of a neighboring island had arrived. They wanted advice on fire carts, for they had been plagued with fires recently. They also needed a very small seat in the front, as they had the oddest thing, a monkey who knew how to drive a cart.
So somebody else picked up Raspberry, huh?
Yeah, that's right. Raspberries. Yeah.
Yes, and this is not raspberry, but it's probably a relative of it. It's got a kind of a sulfur-tipped coal tail.
Yeah, that's right.
Does he also drive carts?
You know, we haven't tried. There's always a chance, but I'm a little concerned about torches or carts. We try to just keep monkey in here where it's nice and quiet. Are there any questions at all on the display?
I have a comment, but not a question.
Sure.
Ma'am, I really think having a bell ring when you say it and the bells rang out would be a nice little touch.
All right, we'll think of that. We'll try to add that in. Thank you very much. That's a good idea. All right this way to the next display. Ever not fall into anything around here? Management are responsible for all incidents herein.
Oh.
Oh. Right, we'll get to that display in a moment. Oh, this is not a tavern filled with delicious libations. In fact, if you had been here 50 years ago, you'd be dead. It wasn't unusual a long time ago to place additives into your spirits, to give them an interesting note, be it bitter, sweet, or bittersweet. It was an unusually crowded evening the night before, and would be again, at a combination inn and tavern. The tavern keep was too busy to go for the ingredient for a top note to add to the drink for the next evening. The tavern keep sibling was sent to pick up the rare, delicious, green, sweet ingredient, Magistine. The herbologist, however, also out, and in their stead their apprentice was working. The assistant herbologist mistook the requested Magistine for the more common pest remover, maggot stem. Nearly identical in appearance and flavor, coupled with their very unfortunate similarity in name, the switch was made. The maggot stem was delivered to the tavern and used to give the libations their signature smooth sweetness. As is custom with a spirit house attached to overnight accommodations, the drinks poured heavily, quickly. The hallucinations began about an hour into the evening. The vomiting began shortly thereafter. Ingestion of maggot stem was said to produce hallucinations such as liquid running down the walls, inanimate objects breathing, skies filled with flying animals, and the mistaking of human form for animal. The chaos of the visions, coupled with the vomiting, began a putrid battle within the tavern, where all fought for their very lives. Any who made it outside were driven back in by the visions they saw in the sky. Those victors who survived the vomitous battle were said to have laid unconscious on these very floorboards until their hearts slowed to death.
You know, I could go for some hallucinations if we can skip the vomiting.
Unfortunately, it's all part of the deal. I don't think you want to ingest the maggot stem. I mean, you have the hallucinations at first, but it turns a little sour after a while.
Trust me, he's eaten worse.
I don't know. Hallucinations for the rest of your life sound good.
Kinda. I don't want to be that guy. Is there any water around?
Sure. Now, all right, let's go ahead. We'll move forward.
Sorry.
Come this way. We'll go ahead and take you to the area for the food and drink and beverages. We have a little stop over here. We're getting to it, but here we.
Thank you so much.
Delicious popcorn. Popcorn, get your popcorn.
Would you have popcorn in there? The popped out corn?
Popped out corn with swelt butter.
Thank you so much. I was curious of you saying nothing and just keeling over and dying. Never being seen again.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. If you want to continue the tour, we'll go right this.
Wait, sorry.
If you've been to... Is everyone here?
I think so, yeah.
I'm here.
If you've been to a hot, humid tropical island, you know all too well the heat can be unrelenting. Two elderly brothers were looking for the lost goat near their home when they stumbled upon something, a very large abandoned well. The well had run low of water, but the inside could feel the cool, refreshing air blow past them. And instead of floating, now they had to kneel or sit on the bottom of the well. This did not suit their aging frames very well, and they began to talk, again, of a plan. It was decided to make the well a bit more comfortable, and they moved some furniture inside, using ropes and the goat, which was when they found in time, to lower some things down from the hatch above. This would be their final plan. Their friend, who knew of the well and having not seen the brothers for some time, began to worry and look for them. When they approached the well, they could already tell something was wrong. The scent of mold and mildew and end of life met their friend before the well. For you see, as they were soaking in the cool, damp richness of the well, their furniture was also. The introduction of the furniture began a growth of mold and mildew and rot that first tainted the well and then outright poisoned it. As the furniture was slowly mildewing and molding from the outside, the cool, damp, dark back of the chairs was growing a deadly fungus. Before that fungus was discovered, it had already started to emit toxic spores, which filled the well and the two elderly brothers. Any questions at all? Those are not the actual chairs. There's no real mold and mildew or fungus.
Won't it start, though, if it's here for long?
No, those chairs have been painted to look like they have mold and mildew on them, and we take them out periodically and check them and make sure they're not growing any of the deadly fungus up the back of them.
Yeah, we placed them on our ship, and there was a pirate that wanted to take that off our ship the other day, and we discouraged him.
So you're saying you don't have a side business in biological warfare?
Oh, no, we don't.
That's good.
Can we start one? Just placing suspicious gem places?
I do have a question, ma'am.
Yes, absolutely.
I am absolutely enjoying this, and you are delightful. And these stories are, although a little creepy, very lovely. But are there really 12 more exhibits? Your sign said there were 17.
Yeah, there's a few more. Are you quick on time? We can hurry through.
Well, I'm enjoying it.
I'm saying I'm enjoying it. I'm just saying if there's 12 more, we've only seen.
Are you saying I should stop talking?
Just wait till we come to the story of the Shimmers.
Oh,
Oh,
all right. We'll try to pick up the pace a little bit more. Far beneath a beautiful country estate lies strange fate for those unfortunate enough to have encountered a pair of mad noblewomen. That a secret which would have run the blood code in the aristocratic circles they kept themselves in. The mad women had developed an unusual diet preference. Human toenails. Half-hearted soldier, drunken sailor, or sea wench, they were all preyed upon. They went into the dark night to turn up victims. They would wait outside tavern and dance hall for those inebriated enough not to put up a fight. Back over the head and about 6 spins around was usually enough to knock even the stoutest person unconscious if they had been plied with enough drink. They'd be locked into the chambers before you and their feet scrubbed, cleaned, and toenails carefully trimmed so as not to waste an ounce of the precious resource. I know what you're wondering. Why not just pull them out at the root? After all, it's the sensible thing to do. Well, the sisters weren't monsters, you see. They were just hungry. So very hungry. Each victim awakened, dumped on the outskirts of town, shoeless, sockless, pants rolled the knee, but their feet were beautifully scrubbed, and the toenails perfectly trimmed. The sisters were caught when they mistook a pair of sleepy officers for inebriated, and were overcome by them. Threatened with having their toenails pulled out at the root, it is the sensible thing to do. They confessed to the entire ruse. Afterward, they fell from grace and out of high society. They took on new identities where they began to work in a wash house, trimming the nails of the people who came to bathe, thereby continuing to feed their insane and insatiable hunger.
Wait, is that why your toes are always so nicely trimmed?
What?
This little piggy went out to lunch.
Who's
He
trimming my
has the
toenails?
nicest toenails, like very well trimmed.
I'm
Take
not
off your
trimming
boots
them.
and show them. It's
Okay, but
beautiful.
I'm not trimming them. I don't know who's doing it.
Alright, let me see.
Look at how lovely coiffed his. Most men's feet are ugly.
Yeah. No, they look wonderful, look marvelous.
I think
You've been
maybe when you were drunk, this happened to you.
You've been dumped on the outskirts of a town, shoeless, sockless.
Once or twice.
My goodness. Yeah, could be all happening again. My goodness.
It's a story about me. It's kind of weird.
Right. A new beautiful island Freeport was too close to the Deepwater Ocean Trench. The frequent ship traffic to and from the island had angered the residents of the deep waters. Many different creatures made their way out of the depths to investigate the new disturbance as the swirling waters mixed warm water down. To grow much angrier, becoming a constant menacing presence in the waters. To teach their citizens defensive tactics to protect themselves against the angry mermaids, as well as to ensure people would not fear nearing their profitable freeport. The freeport opened a training institute just off the shore. Seen before you here are the standard issue training form, as well as the specialized mermaid training form just here beside me, developed at the institute, normally housed in deeper waters. It was used to teach citizens techniques to avoid or defend against angry mermaids. The mermaids seemed to realize something was occurring at the freeport and really began to increase their violence. Eventually, they began to investigate the institute itself, making their way to the shoreside where the training forms were stationed. Instead of damaging the training forms, however, the mermaids began to study them, possibly believing them to be figures in reverence of the mermaids themselves. It is believed that they took this as a sign the mermaid was a respected neighbor and led them to stop their attacks completely. Unintentionally, these forms did work to protect the citizens. No one who was trained to defend themselves ever even had to, and the mermaid forms were left in the water as a sign of a continued mutual respect. Luckily for the freeport, the mermaids had not witnessed the defensive techniques used against these forms.
What were some of the techniques?
Oh, I don't know exactly. There's a lot of different ones. I do know that they put very long eyelashes on the mermaid. I'm not sure why. I don't know if mermaids have long eyelashes. They could.
I don't know. The last time one tried to drown me, I didn't exactly look at eyelashes. Next time I will. I'll let you know.
And take a look. Yes, bring back information. Let us know if they're nice and long.
Yes, I'll document it.
Yes.
I'll definitely let you know.
A skilled blacksmith made a fortune on board a ship repairing broken old wood stoves on a frozen polar region. A fortune he intended to keep. Looking around his ship one day, he realized he had a dozen wood stoves and no one had claimed them after they were repaired. Needing to both remove the extra weight from the ship, he found a more suitable place to keep his treasures safe. He left the polar region for his home on a warm elephant island. He owned a small piece of the island that included a swamp. The swamp was home to many horrendous beasts, the least of which were an endless amount of spiders. He knew the perfect location for a hideaway for his treasure trove was a well-hidden cavern on the edge of the swamp. You would not see it unless you were falling into it. Covered in vines and growth, it was the perfect place, except it was the home to thousands of those spiders. But he knew spiders feared one thing above all others, a larger, faster spider. To attempt to stop them from living in the cavern, as well as to add an additional shock, should anyone unfortunate enough stumble into the chambers. He carted the old forgotten wood stoves down into the darkened mouth of the cavern to create this monstrosity here beside me. Welding the stoves together and carving a stone plinth from the cavern's rocks, he successfully created a spider to frighten all spiders, and the others fled in fear, leaving him in freedom to place his treasure deep into the now delightfully spider-free cavern. He went back to making more and more treasure and readied himself for a return to the caverns. Upon his return, he was looking forward to the spiderless cavern after having fought his way through many of them in the swamps. He arrived at the cavern to find it filled, not with spiders, but elephants. It was bursting at the seams with elephants. They chased him away from the entrance all the way back to his ship over and over, for you see, the only thing keeping the elephants from the cavern were the spiders. And the only thing luring the elephants into the cavern was the new multiple-armed scratching post someone had left there for them to use.
I mean, I suppose his treasure is now well guarded.
True.
Or was.
He can't. I think there's probably a chance he can't get to it himself. So, I don't know. Here is what was once a beautiful, marvelous circus organ. The organ was a modern wonder. It needed no one to play it, and in fact, it had no keys at all. It produced sound through steam, with a series of reused water and stovepipes, and could play the most beautiful melodies. It was pulled by 3 elephants on 3 carts as the circus parade arrived in the town, playing all the while to let the residents know the circus was arriving. The circus fell to ruin after the death of the ringmaster and owner. The ringmaster was thrown higher than the high wire act one evening by a pair of elephants looking to escape circus life. The audience, seeing the tragedy unfold, sent warnings to all who avoid the circus at risk of peril. The organ was purchased at an auction of items from the circus by a group of ne'er-do-wells with a plan. They would travel with a reassembled pipe organ port to port, playing friendly melodies for tips throughout the day. They would quieten as the shops closed and the people headed to their neighboring homes. Then in the late hours of the evening, they would stoke the fires of the steam heaters until they were raging. The beautiful music produced by the gentle steam pressure now became a howling, screeching, clangorous noise. This caused the residents to flee their homes in terror, and the horses and animals to batter their stalls, not knowing what beast was capable of such horrendous noise. The ne'er-do-wells would slow the fires eventually, but only so they could issue a proclamation. The fires would be stoked repeatedly until the township was able to come up with a predetermined fee to pay the ne'er-do-wells to leave the port in peace. The ne'er-do-wells landed in a port as usual one afternoon. They played their beautiful music. Shops closed. The residents began to leave. They waited. They went to the box on the top deck to get the wood for the fires. Instead of the residents being quietly asleep, the entire town was standing row after row, lining the edge of the harbor, quietly staring at the vessel. The water was already flowing into the ship by the time the ne'er-do-wells could react. The residents had been made aware of the approaching ship 2 days prior and had already formed a plan of their own. The pipe organ was dismantled and trod upon, resulting in the warped, discolored remaining pipes from that organ that you see behind me here today.
Does it still work?
No, it doesn't work anymore. It's not hooked up to steam anymore, you see. But if it were hooked up to steam, it would make some sort of noise. I don't know if it would be very pleasant, though, with the warped, discolored pipes that it has remaining.
It would be interesting to figure out what it sounded like.
Oh, it would, wouldn't it? What if it was stoked with fires until it was a horrendous, clangorous noise? We would be able to see then what it exactly sounded like.
Exactly.
We'll let you into the next chamber, not to fall into the grave.
Oh.
Below you here lies the coffin of the final husband of the widow of Shallow Creek. She was called the widow because she had buried 12 husbands, 11 of whom were deceased. She begged for help from the townspeople. She said she was being haunted by the vengeful ghost of her most recent husband. The widows of the town vowed to help her and formed a group which would sit in the home of the widow while she tried to rest. It was a quick rotation, for you see they all eventually stared straight again into the eyes of the man they used to know. Each night, someone sat with the widow. Just before the skies began to lighten, there was a shuffling behind them. One after another, those widows fled the still darkened, creaking home. Once that group was exhausted, the poor widow still pleaded to the town for help. The young single men were sent next, as they were thought to be less prone to fret. Same story, however. They all ran for their lives after gazing into the eyes of the dead man. The oldest woman in town, thought far too frail, asked, "May I go next?" She sat slumped forward next to the warm fire in her chair, eyes closed, back to the room when the ghost appeared. His long bony fingers, reaching, clawing, slid up over the back of the chair and around the woman's frail, thin neck. From outside the home, a blood-curdling scream that chased wolves into their dens was cut short. The townsfolk worried for the frail lady, but humoring her, had kept their ears open for her call. A number of them reached steps to the cabin at the same time. They clambered to the front door and flung it open. Standing tall over two bodies was the frail old woman. What no one realized is that the oldest woman in town was also the wisest. Unable to sleep well in the cold nights due to her old bones, she would sleep during the warm daylight hours. But every night, she would watch the supposedly dead husband of the widow of Shallow Creek creep into house after house through town. For you see, as people went to sit with the terrified widow, her very much alive husband was looting the houses of the people who came to help her. He would arrive later and scare the people back to their homes so he could show what he had taken to his wife. The oldest woman, however, went prepared, rolling pin in sleeve to expose the ruse of the widow of Shallow Creek.
It's a pretty smart ruse, all things considered.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it gives you ideas.
Does it?
Over on this side, deep in a prison, lie a cold, dark, windowless cell. A guard routinely traversed the corridors. One prisoner that they had not planned on having and didn't know the history of was a magician trained in the art of lock-picking. Picking the lock came easily enough, but getting out of the area proved more difficult. As the cell was at the end of a U-shaped corridor, the prisoner had nothing but time to plan, though, as they had sat there waiting. Day in, day out, they watched the guards, and they finally thought of their plan. The guards always took the same pathway through the loop, and they realized they could never go towards the guards, or they would be seen. But if they could go ahead of the guards, they may just make it out ahead of them. One problem, though, was their bed would surely be found empty as they were on their way to the exit and freedom, raising the alarm bell. In an effort to fool the guards, they began to put away slices of bread and sausages in their pillowcase. This plan was nearly ruined twice on an unplanned laundry day when they had to gorge themselves on stashed away food. Finally, a dark, moonless night came, dark enough for their plan to work. They neatly arranged the old bits of bread and sausages to form a vague figure, just enough for the guards to see a body asleep in the bed and to give them time to slip away. The plan went smoothly, and the prisoner was able to escape perfectly. The guards eventually discovered the ruse, and knowing how the head of the guards was, and knowing what they had to do, sat down for a most unwanted feast.
You're welcome to step forward and take a closer look at the table.
Oh yes, you're welcome to step forward and take a look at the sausages and bread. There's no body there. Everyone thinks it might be a real body. No, it's just neatly arranged sausages and bread.
It's pretty well done.
Can we eat the sausages?
You're welcome to have a taste if you like. You can have a lick of a sausage if you like. It has a pleasant flavor.
It was not pleasant. I don't know how long that sausage has been there.
It's been laid by. There's no telling how long it's been there. In a remote cabin, something unusual happened. The owner of the cabin grew older and more tired, and as the years were catching up to him, he thought he needed a way to bring vigor back to his life. He found a place where he could, for a price, order a tincture, promising to bring that to him. He placed the order, gave his address, and was told, wait 6 nights, and he would hear a loud bang on his door. He was not to look for the courier, only to quietly wait on the 6th night. On the arranged night, he sat patiently waiting. A loud bang was heard at the darkest portion of night. Nearly jumping from his body, he realized only then he was a bit stronger still, he seemed to realize. He waited a moment, then opened the door to retrieve the package bound in hides and tied to a large stone. He felt the bottle was unusually shiny until he realized a portion of that shine came from inside the bottle. He swirled it through his fingers and stared at the cork top, and he thought of his plan, and he glanced up at the portrait of his loved one. He realized this bottle may hold more than he bargained for. What if it turned back his aging altogether? What if it stopped his aging? Could he decide when he was through with this powerful elixir? He sighed and he realized, now that he held the power in his hand, what he missed was not his youth. It was part of his youth, and that was not coming back. Angry mostly at himself, he flung the bottle into the fireplace, coating the back of it, where the fireplace grew and roared like a tiger and spit flames across the room, eventually settling back down into a normal fireplace once again. He wondered what type of magic was in this tincture, and he vowed to himself he would never again try to recapture that which is meant to be left in the past. Go ahead and do this one next while it's still dark enough. A packed cargo freighter named the Sea Slicer sailed through a fog-shrouded sea. It lurched high and low in the sea, crates groaning at its sides. On board, amongst the crew, stood a mere deckhand. As the ship passed through the Shimmer, a mysterious event occurred. Every person, in fact every creature everywhere, disappeared, except the deckhand. Calling out for anyone else, he realized he was totally alone. In fear for the crate, the contents, and the ship itself, the deckhand began to panic. He didn't understand the workings of the ship to get it under control, and without a crew to pull the sails and manage the ship's wheel, it seemed a task that could not be accomplished. "Hello? Hello? Help!" he pleaded. His plea was heard by the only other thing that inhabited the other side of the Shimmer. The figure stood before him on the other side of the cabin door, but he could immediately tell this figure was not human. It had no facial features. In fact, it had no features at all. The ship careened out of control, and just as the figure reached through the doorway, the ship crashed on the shore of a desolate island. The deckhand was thrown overboard and into the water just beside the shoreline. While running from the ship and the figure, the deckhand began to realize he wasn't breathing normally. With every breath he took, it grew shallower and shallower. The farther he made it from the figure, the less he could breathe. The world grew darker and darker until he finally went unconscious. The deckhand awakened to find himself all the way back where the voyage began. But the crew, the ship, and the cargo were never seen again. They say the Shimmer figure waits just over the Shimmer for its next crew. Will you be the only one it spares, or will you never be seen again?
Oh no. Is this why we hold our breath when we go through shimmers?
Yeah, just like you hold your breath, but on the other side, we've heard stories of seeing your future and your past on two different ships.
We've heard tell of people crossing the Shimmer only to meet themselves on the other side. Only themselves seem to have been under some sort of spell or something. They were very tired and sleeping. So we have conjecture that perhaps this figure, looking to pull crew from their ship, is also somehow duplicating people in the world and pulling them onto the other side. Yes.
We have an experience with that.
Oh,
I told the story last time, but we was going to the Freeport. And then we went through the Shimmer and I could see myself laying there. And there was two ships.
no ships.
And I was everything like the one ship was in a few, I mean the other ship was like from history, like a day ago.
Oh,
I don't know. There must be some curse magic happen when we drew through the Shimmer.
yeah, there's something happening. You have to be careful when you cross these shimmers. Some unusual figure on the other side as well. It hungers for shoulder pets as well, or animals on your ship. It will snatch them from you as you cross the Shimmer. Hold tight to your animals as you own the seals.
Is that how you lose balls, Sam? Okay. That makes sense now.
Here before us is the interior of the city office of the Butcher of Butterfly Lane, as he was later known. Shown on the table here beside me are the actual repurposed tools that he used. Fancying himself a dentist, he was able to convince the local populace that he was legitimate. Using a plant known for hallucinogenic properties, he was able to cause patients to, in essence, mentally leave their bodies, while he tied them to this table here in front of you. He would then remove all of the teeth of the victim, promising repairs to their teeth. It was so much easier to convince them afterward that all their teeth were bad, and therefore none of the work which he did not know how to do need to be performed. Human teeth were a prized and highly valued form of carotenoid, similar to bone but with a much sturdier structure once refined properly. The fraudulent dentist would leave his office early in the day, and that was thought odd by the community, considering how many of them desperately needed dental work. He had a nefarious reason for leaving early. He was tainting the town's water supply with ground-up squid innards. The innards still contained the powerful acids that the squid uses to break down sharp shells ingested in its feeding cycle. And even once ground up and dispersed, those innards still had enough acidic quality to weaken the teeth of the town's dwellers to the point of needing dental work and thereby supplying this fraudulent dentist with the teeth that he so desired.
Never going to the dentist again.
No, it doesn't come recommended. Was there any questions so far?
Oh, you forgot to tell them in this box here if anybody wants to look at a couple of teeth, real human teeth.
There are some teeth in that box as well, if you want to.
Not just teeth.
Alright, the tour continues this way. We're nearly at the end now.
Please keep all hands and legs inside your body. Do not go past the exhibit wall there.
Do not reach through. No reaching. The story of this printing press began in the polar north. The freighter Frozen Sails was used to deliver supplies to a far-flung polar research base where the Frozen Institute was located. On the slippery top deck of Frozen Sails, a crew member called out eerily, "Who's there?" when they heard voices in the frozen fog crying. The calling out stopped, and the other crew stopped in their tracks. Soon enough, they heard it too. Enchanting voices, calling out not in sorrow, but in song. By the time they could raise the alarm, none of them wanted to any longer. Below decks, a sleeping crew member who would be on a late shift was awakened. They were slid out of bed and across the sleeping quarters. Just as the crew member made it halfway to the topside, the sails, sitting now untended, whirled and snapped violently in the wind. The heeling of the ship was so intense that the crew members who were not already overboard were dumped overboard. The crew member was awestruck with horror. The crew member had plugged their ears with rolled cotton to stop the loud crew above from waking them, and was oblivious to the sounds now coming from the ocean, but knew in an instant what was happening. They were under the attack of the siren's song. The masts, weakened by the whirling and forceful snapping, groaned and gave way. They crashed down through the decks below, severely damaging the hull of the ship in the process. The crew member climbed into a dinghy, lowered it, and looked around as their crewmates nearby sickeningly dove underwater and disappeared down into the now freezing blue abyss. The survivor rowed and rowed for hours in the frozen waters until they had reached land. They staggered onto the frosty shores, called out, and collapsed. They had made it to the island of the Frozen Institute, and they would very soon be found. The same cannot be said for the Frozen Sails and her other crew. They drifted down into the frozen depths below. The survivor decided to print a book to tell the tale of that horrendous day and use the boards from the very dinghy that they survived in to make the printing press here behind me. Print their books on. It is said that the sea sirens had placed a curse on that dinghy because they did not get the chance to clear the ocean completely that day. The now cursed printing press can at times call out to those who are nearby, asking them to climb into its gnashing jaws. It is rumored to have eventually devoured the crew member who created it. And it's left us wondering, now is it satisfied, or will it strike again?
We need one. We need one, Sam.
Oh,
Well, I was wondering if it's right next to the food and beverage, you know, just in case she gets hungry, like the snack's right there.
oh, that is a very good idea. We could throw a snack in there occasionally to try to satisfy it partway through the tour, so no one's at risk. Okay, this way to our final exhibit. We're at the end now.
Please stand in front of the double doors.
Being so violent.
Yes. Stand aside. All right, is everyone in? Okay. In front of you stands Hera, the oddity of Itch Meadow Farm. Born during a hurricane, it is believed she was born in midair, the wrong way around. She has been utterly convinced that she is standing the right way up, and she cannot be corrected. She does not use her hooves, and instead she drags herself along the ground with her horns and wiggles side to side like a serpent to get around. She is able to see berries on the underside of bushes that the other animals miss. So maybe this is a new adaptation of the species in order to fill a void. Her hooves must be filed down regularly as she does not wear them down naturally. She produces what her original owners at the farm referred to as the wrong way milk, in that it comes out the wrong way around. It is said that by not hanging down into the udders and cooling, the milk is able to stay hotter for a longer period of time, and it produces a sweeter, more mature milk with a caramel flavor undertone that is prized of regular milk. You're welcome to take a step inside and take a close look at Hera if you like.
There's also samples of Swilk here if anybody would like to take a sample.
We don't have to.
Swilk, I get it.
Yeah,
I get it now, Swilk. I get it now.
yes, Will.
Yeah.
Is utterly ridiculous.
Well, we find that it's much cleaner this way. We don't have to wash the milk. If you need to wash your regular milk before you drink it, by the way, if you have any of the standard milk. This milk, however, the udders having been placed in a new location, it's not nearly as foul as the regular milk.
It's really good, actually. I like that.
That concludes the tour here today at BoggOdd Oddities Museum. We hope you found some strange, some unusual, and some odd stories today.
Over here at the writing desk, if anybody would like to sign the guest book or leave a review, feel free to take a letter and fill it out and drop it off at Dropbox.
I'm gonna quickly run to the ship and grab a little bit to put in the donation box. I'll be right back.
I don't want to write that this will truly haunt my dreams for the rest of my life.
I thought it was a lovely tour.
It was.
It was nice, but that cow worded me out.
I do have some good ideas I will share with you on the ship.
Oh, you're
Upside down, Charles.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you for changing the sign.
You're quite welcome. 2 tours, not bad.
No, it's not bad at all. I just hope everyone enjoyed themselves and was able to see some strange odd and unusual things today.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we have a lot of giraffes on our island. We need to check now.
Oh no,
Not
What?
giraffe.
not the
What?
giraffe.
Oh, so did you enjoy
Thank you
the
again.
tour?
Wait,
Always nice to go through here.
Oh, thank you for
You
coming
can't
through.
just say, oh no, like that, not
Where is the
explain.
donation box?
I feel like I have
It's
to.
inside, but you can put a donation in here as well if
Oh,
you like.
yes.
A
I
little
put it.
closer.
I put it some here last time as well.
Did you guys leave a message or anything? Or a review?
I know papers make me funny.
I don't review with paper. I review with my voice.
There's no
So
thatch
how
in there
many
to make one, sadly.
people, do you get through here?
Does anybody have thatch?
Nope.
I have bullets and that's it. I didn't even bring shoes today.
How many people do you get through here every day?
Oh, we had another tour earlier today, a few hours ago,
Sorry.
and I think there were probably 8 people
Just
on
have
that
some word of mouth.
Why?
The other side.
Are we going
I just
now?
wanted to
And
hear your voice.
recommended people to go here at the Freeport as well. So maybe some of
This
them
place
have
was
been
cool.
by.
Thank
I
you
like
very
it.
much. We really
I
appreciate
like
it.
it.
Where'd they go? Oh, hi.
Oh,
Enjoy.
you're welcome.
You're welcome. Spread the warnings. Let people
Very
know.
much.
Very welcome. Yes, spread the warnings. Let people know we're here so they can come hear the warnings for themselves.
We certainly will. I know I'm going to.
Thank you very much for stopping here today at BoggOdd Oddities Museum.
Thank you for the tour.
You're welcome.
It's really nice to see you guys.
Nice to see you as well.
Thank you.
Every day.
And our exhibits are going to be constantly rotating, so
Oh,
come
that's
back.
fantastic. It's good to know. Let's be
Okay,
back.
bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Hey,
Goodbye. Take care.
Goodbye.
bye. You take care as well, Olaf.
Safe travels.
Are you coming, Olaf?
Yes, I'm coming.
Anyone in the museum? Is anyone left in the museum? You don't want to be in here alone with the clockwork. I think it's clear.